So, I said in the last couple lectures that a moral personhood seems very important in thinking about in deciding the issue of abortion, and also for various reasons the utilitarian just doesn't care about it, right? But most of us do. And that brings us back to this question, well, we think we have it. You rightly think that you're a moral person. You know, hopefully you admit I'm a moral person, right? But what accounts for it? What accounts for this moral standing that you and I have that ink pens certainly don't to any degree, that desks and chairs and rocks and windows certainly don't, and that dogs and cats and other animals do not have to the same degree we do, if they have it at all, right? What accounts for it? Now, one answer is biological humanity. Humans have moral standing just because they are humans. Natural law theory, in a lot of forms, will say this. And, I'm not Catholic, so I don't want to speak too much for what the Catholic Church thinks, but it's my understanding that, you know, natural law theory plays a big role in how the Catholic Church reasons about things. And because natural law theory gives this answer, it's a lot of the reason that the church takes such a strong stance against abortion. Well, why? Because if this is your answer, then it seems clear that the fetus is a person from the get go, right? Is it human? Well, come on. Of course it's human, right? What else would it be, you might say? Well, if you're perceptive, you're probably saying, well, why does he say seems? He might have even, seems like he's weaseling on this. You might have even gotten some comments from me on like written assignments. Don't use weasel words like seem or might and could. Why am I saying this? Well, I'm saying seems here for the very good reason that this is actually much more complicated and unclear than it looks. Why is that? Because what counts as biologically human, despite seeming very simple, or at least biologically human in a sense that should qualify you for moral personhood, it actually turns out to be really complicated. You know, what is it, right? Think about some possible answers. Is it human DNA? Are you biologically human simply by having human DNA, right? Well, think about that. Remember our method when we talk about a philosophical theory, we want to think about cases we're sure about and see if it gives us the right answer there. Well, there are plenty of things that nobody, absolutely nobody, thinks have moral standing, thinks are moral persons that pretty clearly have human DNA, right? You know, if I'm at the doctor and a nurse had my checkup in a few months, so I'm like already thinking about this. Let's assume that the phlebotomist takes some vials of blood, they're going to test it. Now, look, imagine that she drops all those vials of blood, right? I would be, and they just shatter everywhere, right? I would be annoyed because I'd have to do the whole darn thing again, right? Whoever cleans the doctor's office would be more than annoyed because you got blood and glass on the floor, right? You'd be crazy though. Nobody would think that she's killed a person, right? I assure you that I have human DNA. I assure you that my blood also has human DNA, but a vial of blood is not a person, right? You know, still alive, right? In the sense you could take that blood and transfuse it in another person. And if they had type O positive blood, or at least, I guess O is the universal donor, if they had most types of blood, they'd be fine. It's living, it has human DNA, it is not a person, right? And you can also think about what if a human being had non human DNA, right? And it's not that outlandish possibility, right? We might imagine a case where we splice in some non human DNA to cure some medical condition in a human infant. I don't want to, whatever sci-fi case you think of, if you said, well, he's got some, I don't know, fill in whatever DNA you want, like maybe baboon or something, right? That wouldn't make the person non-human, right? And you think about this too, most apes have 90 some percent of the same DNA we do. Does that 4% make a huge difference? Then you might say, well, human DNA plus human biological structure, is that your account? That would exclude the vial of blood, right? It doesn't have the biological structure of an adult human. But, well, you still need to say a lot more about what human biological structure is. And you might worry that some ways you account for this, the fetus, at least at some very early stages, doesn't have that structure, right? The bigger issue, though, and it's what I've been hinting at all along here, is that it seems arbitrary, right? Think about this, right? What if we create or encounter an intelligent being that is not human? Fiddling with genetic engineering, we might say create a pig or an ape or whatever that's every bit as smart as we are, can talk, can do everything we can. Could we just kill it or do whatever we want with it because it's not human, right? Or imagine that we discover intelligent life on other planets. If we discover intelligent life, they can do everything we can. They can talk, they can reason, they care about their children, they care about each other, they can feel pain. Could we just murder them because they don't have human biological structure? Even if they were really weird, even if they were like the intelligent squid creatures from that movie Arrival, or, whatever, I don't think we would answer yes, right? What if we create computers that really are intelligent? I hate to keep going back to this, but Mr. Data from Star Trek, could we just break him up for parts because he's made out of silicon and wires and isn't biologically human? That doesn't seem right. That seems, excuse me for saying this, that just seems bizarre to me, right? And that gets to the deeper problem here. Biological humanity as an account of moral standing threatens to both let in things it shouldn't, like vials of blood, and to exclude things it shouldn't, like intelligent robots, intelligent aliens, intelligent animals, human beings who have non human DNA for whatever reason. It just doesn't seem like a good account. In light of that, I think, or I hope, you can see the appeal of something like a Kantian account of personhood. Remember, Kant talks about formula of humanity, but really what he has in mind are certain capabilities that human beings have. So let's think about this Kantian account of personhood and what it will say about fetuses, right? Are they human? Well, not are they human, that's a badly phrased question. Are they persons or not? We'll pick up that issue in the next lecture.